Good evening, good day to everybody here. I'd like to introduce you to Professor Oscar Traynor. As you know, Professor Oscar Traynor is the Dean of the Postgraduate Surgical Education and also Professor of Postgraduate Surgical Education at the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, Dublin. And in his role, he has been responsible or has introduced several innovations, including the world's first e-learning program for surgical trainees. Uh, we are here today to discuss the Masters in Surgical Practice uh, run by Professor Traynor. As you know, he has also published widely on various aspects of surgical training, and he has, I believe, lectured extensively on in surgery in Europe, Australia, and North America. He was a practicing surgeon until recently. He was the surgeon in hepatobiliary and transplant, including liver transplantation at St. Vincent's in Dublin. And he's also the director of clinical governance at Hermitage Medical Clinic in Dublin, a post which he has held for the last 8 years. So without further ado, I will pass the mic, so to speak, to Professor Oscar Traynor. Oscar, all yours.
Thank you, Prem. Good evening, everybody. It's a great pleasure and great honor to be with you this evening and to talk to you about the Masters in Surgical Education and Masters in Surgical Science and Practice in RCSI. Sorry, I'm struggling here a little bit with the technology, but we are getting there. Okay. So, Kevin, can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, that's perfect, Prof. Traynor. That's perfect.
Okay, so what I'd like to talk to you about this evening is the Master's Programme in Surgical Science and Practice that we run in RCSI in Dublin. And to sort of give you some sense of where we're coming from with this programme, I'm going to talk to you more broadly about how we should be looking to train the surgeons of tomorrow. So firstly, I'd like to send you greetings from Ireland. For those of you who have never been here, Ireland is a small island nation situated on the very western extremity of Europe. We are the most westerly nation within the European Union. We are now the only English-speaking country in the European Union. We are a country of great natural beauty, from rugged coastlines and seascapes to beautiful inland waterways and magnificent countryside scenery. It's a really beautiful country to visit. The Irish people enjoy the good things in life. We enjoy sports of every sort and all sorts of activities and pastimes. We're a nation who put a high value on a balance between work and general life. And we also put a very high balance, high priority on family life and family values. So the quality of life in Ireland is very good. It's a wonderful country to come and work for a year or 2 years. It's a great experience, and it's a very welcoming country, a country that I think you would find no difficulty settling into. Our capital city is Dublin, and you might be excused for thinking, looking at these pictures, that the sun always shines in Dublin. Unfortunately, it's not quite like that. We do get more than our fair share of rain, but when the sun does shine, it is an absolutely magnificent city. And situated right in the heart of Dublin is the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, situated in the same place that it has been for more than 200 years now. The Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland was founded in 1784, so it's more than 230 years ago. The college was founded primarily to promote the education and assessment of surgeons and to promote the standards of surgical practice within Ireland. But over the course of more than 200 years, our college has grown way beyond the vision of our founding fathers back in 1784. In addition to training surgeons, we now have undergraduate healthcare programs in medicine. We actually have the largest medical school in Ireland. We also have undergraduate programs in biomedical science, in physiotherapy, and in pharmacy. And at a postgraduate level, we have programs in surgery, radiology, dentistry, healthcare management, sports and exercise medicine, nursing, and physician associates. Our college is now officially designated as a university. So 2 years ago, our college was granted university status by the Government of Ireland, and it is now officially called the RCSI University of Medicine and Health Sciences. And that's to reflect the fact that our programs go way beyond just medicine and surgery. We also have programs for all of the healthcare disciplines. We are currently ranked in the top 2% of universities worldwide. That's according to the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. So that's quite a good achievement for a college that was only designated as a university 2 years ago. We have more than 1,100 staff in Dublin. We have 470 surgical and emergency medicine trainees. And around the world, we have more than 9,500 fellows and members of our college working in 86 countries around the world. And if you look at the total number of our alumni, that's our graduates from medicine and physiotherapy and pharmacy, we have 21,000 alumni of our college working in 94 countries around the world. And we have a large footprint internationally as well as in Dublin. As you well know, we have long-standing relationships with Malaysia. The first collaboration with Malaysia happened as far back as in 1996, 25 years ago, with what was then known as the Penang Medical College and what is now known as the RCSI and UCD Malaysia campus. More recently, we have developed a medical school in Bahrain in the Middle East. This was founded in 2004, and we have good relationships with the university in Bahrain and also with the King Hamad University Hospital. More recently still, we have a medical school in Perdana University just outside Kuala Lumpur. We also have a campus in Dubai, which focuses mostly on healthcare management. And we have a long-standing relationship with COSECSA. COSECSA is the College of Surgeons of East, Central and Southern Africa. And that is a college that is an umbrella college for many of the poorest countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And RCSI collaborates with COSECSA in developing training programs for surgical trainees and surgeons in training in those countries, whereby they can get their training at home in their own country rather than having to come and live in a European country for several years for their training. But for all of our international activities, our core business is and always will be surgical training at RCSI. For the past 5 to 7 years, we have been taking a fundamental re-evaluation of our surgical training programs. And we have been redesigning surgical training to make it more relevant to the practice of surgery that is going to exist in the very near future. And we've asked ourselves some fundamental questions like, how should we train the surgeons of tomorrow? And in doing this, we have looked at how other high-risk industries do training for what may be known as mission-critical high-risk situations and tasks. Industries such as the oil industry, the nuclear power industry, and military defense forces. So at this stage, I'd like to introduce Anusha and Eric. These are two astronauts who are pictured here as they're just about to set off on their first ever space mission. Now, although they have never been in space before, they are in fact fully trained and competent, not only in the technical skills required to actually fly their spacecraft, but also in the non-technical skills required to deal with every conceivable situation which could possibly occur when they're in space. And all of that training, every bit of it, has taken place through simulation. It had to, because if you think about it, NASA doesn't actually do training flights. The first time you go into space, you're entirely on your own. And you have to be competent and able to deal with any situation which arises. Not only have they been trained through simulation, but they have also been assessed and assessed and assessed using very robust and objective assessment methodologies. And all of those assessments have been carefully documented and logged, so that as they set off on their first space mission, NASA has 100% confidence that they can safely and competently complete their mission. Now, wouldn't it be great if we could do the same thing in surgery? Wouldn't it be great if the first time that a surgeon went into the operating room, she or he already had all of the technical skills required to actually perform the surgical procedure, and all of the non-technical skills required to deal with any eventuality which might occur? And why not? Because actually astronaut training is not that unique. We know that the same thing happens in aviation. No commercial airline in the world would allow a trainee pilot anywhere near the cockpit of one of its $300 million aircraft unless they had already completed the vast majority of their training in the simulator, in the flight simulator. And not only do they learn the technical skills, but they also learn the non-technical skills or human factors. In fact, the aviation industry were the pioneers of human factors training. And just like the astronauts, they place a major emphasis on assessment and documentation of competence. And we know the same thing happens also in the military. The battlefield is not the place to learn military tactics. Instead, military trainees learn their tactics in simulation, using realistic reenactments of scenarios, and increasingly they're using technology-enhanced simulation aids such as 3D virtual reality and augmented reality. Now, I could quote countless other examples from the nuclear power industry, the oil industry, and many others. But my point is simply this, that in the 21st century, simulation is the preferred model of training for industries, occupations, and activities that involve a high degree of risk to human life. Now, surgery is an activity that definitely involves a high degree of risk to human life. But right now, we train our future surgeons using a model of training that was developed not in the 21st century, not even in the 20th century, but in the 19th century. The model of training that we use in surgery is a model called apprenticeship. And that's a model of training that was developed and popularized by the great American surgeon William Halsted towards the end of the 19th century in Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, apprenticeship in surgery is very similar in principle to apprenticeship in any other craft-based trade or discipline, such as carpentry, plumbing, electricity. Essentially, an apprentice or trainee is attached to a master or trainer, and they learn first by watching the master at work, then by doing parts of tasks under supervision, then by doing full tasks under supervision, and then eventually by doing full tasks under progressively less supervision until they are deemed competent to perform tasks independently. That's what apprenticeship is. That's how it works. And in truth, apprenticeship has worked really well in surgical training and has produced countless generations of fine surgeons all around the world. But there are two ingredients which are absolutely essential for the success of apprenticeship. The first is the opportunity to engage in a large volume of repeated practice. And that involves working long hours over many years. And the second ingredient is the close professional relationship which develops between trainer and trainee. A relationship in which the trainer really gets to know the trainee and knows their strengths and weaknesses, and in particular, their learning needs. Without those two key ingredients, apprenticeship simply cannot work. And in apprenticeship, competence was deemed to have occurred through the passage of time. So if you spent your time in training, you were deemed to be competent. Now, over the past 10 years, we have seen increasing challenges for this traditional model of surgical education and training. Firstly, around the world, there are pressures to reduce the duration of surgical training and to make it shorter, more streamlined, more cost-effective. And at precisely the same time, there have been pressures to reduce the number of hours worked in every one of those training years. These are the working time restrictions that are an increasing feature all around the world. Here in Europe, we now have what we call the 48-hour working week, the European Working Time Directive. And that mandates that trainees cannot work more than 48 hours in a week. Now, that is an approximately 50% reduction compared to 15 years ago. 15 years ago, surgical trainees regularly worked 90 to 100 hours per week, and they trained for 12 to 14 years. Now, surgical training is 8 years, and trainees work 48 hours a week. So that inevitably impacts on those two key ingredients that I spoke about. The opportunity to engage in a large volume of repeated practice, and also that important relationship between trainer and trainee. But there's more. Firstly, technology is becoming increasingly embedded in surgical practice. And that makes it more difficult for junior trainees, particularly, to actually perform surgical procedures. In most countries, there is now an increased focus on meeting service targets. And that means that inevitably there's a decreased amount of time available for training. Certainly in this part of the world, we see regular cancellation of elective surgery because of the pressure of emergency admissions, and emergency admissions have to take priority over elective admissions. And finally, there are changing public expectations. The public no longer wish to be used as training material for junior surgeons. And instead, quite understandably, they want their surgery performed by the most senior, most experienced member of the team. And very lastly, there is an increasing requirement by regulators, such as the Medical Council, for us to verify and document the competence of trainees at the end of training. The environment in which we work as surgeons is becoming increasingly complex, and that poses major challenges for surgical training. Firstly, we are seeing an increasing use of technology in surgery. Technologies such as advanced minimally invasive surgery, robotic surgery, microsurgery, 3D bioprinting, all of these are technologies which are bringing great advances for patient care, but they do increase the complexity of surgical training, and they do make surgical training a lot more challenging. Over the next few years, we're going to see inevitably an increased use of artificial intelligence in surgical practice. So things like intraoperative decision support systems, preoperative planning systems, nanotechnology, augmented reality. All of these are going to radically change surgical practice in the very near future. But it's not only technology that's changing, it's also the people. 20 years ago, the surgical team in the operating theatre largely consisted of surgeons, anaesthetists, and nurses. That was the surgical team. Today's surgical team is a much wider, multi-professional, multidisciplinary team, and includes many other healthcare professionals apart from the doctors and the surgeons. Our surgeons of the future will need to have the personal skills in order to function effectively as part of this multidisciplinary, multi-professional team. And our patients are also becoming more complex. People are living longer, which means they have more comorbidities, they're on far more medications. Managing patients who are elderly, frail, with multiple comorbidities is becoming much more complex. And so in this scenario, relationships are becoming more important than they ever have been before. And our surgeons of the future will need to learn not only how to operate, but also how to manage relationships with others, with other colleagues, and with the patients we deal with. And finally, as if that wasn't enough, the healthcare process, the environment in which we work, is becoming all the time more complex and more complicated. So our surgeons of the future will need to have at least a basic understanding of healthcare economics, healthcare management, process improvement and lean, clinical governance and patient safety, information technology, innovation in healthcare, and aspects of global surgery. All of these are things that surgical trainees cannot ignore, and this will have to become part of the curriculum for surgical training of the future. So what should we do? Well, firstly, we need to define much more clearly the competencies that we expect of our trainees at the end of training. We need to integrate simulation into the curriculum of surgical training, just as every other high-risk industry in the world does at the present time. We need to professionalize our trainers. We need professional trainers. We need to take assessment much more seriously than we do right now. And we need to design a surgical training pathway in which progression is based on achievement of competencies. So what I would like to talk to you about this evening is how we integrate simulation into the curriculum for surgical training at RCSI. So 4 years ago, in 2017, we opened this brand new state-of-the-art education facility at York Street in the centre of Dublin at our RCSI campus. This is a 10-storey building, and the top 3 floors of this building are dedicated entirely to simulation. And this consists of 3,300 square meters of simulation space on the top 3 floors. So on the 5th floor, we have a large biological lab or wet lab. This is where we can use biological material, cadaveric material, either animal cadavers or human cadavers. We also have a large dry lab. That's where we don't use any biological materials, but we use virtual reality simulation. On the 4th floor, we have a fully equipped mock operating room, and we also have 8 inpatient simulation rooms, which can function either as wards or outpatient clinics or emergency departments or intensive care units. And then on the 3rd floor, we have 10 outpatient consultation rooms. These are designed exactly like an outpatient clinic in a hospital. In fact, they're nicer than most outpatient clinics than I've ever worked in. And these are used primarily for teaching consultation skills, history taking, physical examination, and formulation of investigation pathways. Our large wet lab on the 5th floor is in pretty much constant use most days of the week, and it can accommodate up to 30 trainees at a time. There are 12 stations which are configured exactly like an operating room. So they have operating theatre lights, they have all the services, there's an operating table, so they function exactly as an operating room. And in this facility, we bring in trainers who are practicing surgeons with a high tutor to student ratio. As you can see from the yellow arrows, we have video cameras, a minimum of 2 video cameras at each of the stations that record everything that happens during a training session. And so the video recordings are used to give the trainees feedback at the end of the session, but they're also used for us to store information about the trainee's progression so that we can document trainee competence at the end of the training program. In our dry lab, we also use a lot of synthetic models, such as these models for inguinal hernia repair, or the bench models for teaching basic skills such as knot tying and suturing, or the 3D virtual reality simulators for teaching laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Now, as surgeons, the environment in which we work is extremely complex. It's an environment in which complex interactions take place between human beings and other human beings on the one hand, and between human beings and machines or technologies on the other hand. And in such a complex environment, the potential for critical events to occur is enormous. And the way that we behave at the time of those critical events has a profound impact on clinical outcomes and patient safety. In a nutshell, that's what human factors is all about. It's about the way that we interact with our environment, with other human beings, and with machines or technology, and the impact that has on clinical outcomes and patient safety. In RCSI, we place a very major emphasis on the importance of human factors in patient safety, sometimes referred to as non-technical skills. Our human factors program is now a mandatory part of our surgical training program for all specialties, And all surgical trainees come to our skills centre several times a year for their human factors training, which is based on a predefined curriculum. So our human factors programme includes things such as human personality and behaviour, human performance and error, teamwork and leadership, communication skills, negotiation and conflict resolution, decision-making and judgment, and various aspects of human overload. As far as possible, we do our human factors training using the entire team. So not only surgical trainees, but also trainees in anaesthesia and postgraduate nursing. There's very little didactic teaching, and instead most of the teaching takes place through realistic simulations in which there is a preliminary briefing and then practical scenarios and then a structured debriefing based on video recordings of the scenario. And there's regular reinforcement. Because the trainees come in several times a year, the training is repeated and reinforced on a regular basis. For a lot of our human factors training, we use patient mannequins. These are artificial body forms which are very high tech, and we can recreate a lot of scenarios on these mannequins. But increasingly, we are using simulated patients. So these are members of the public, and we've more than 60 of these simulated patients in our bank of simulated patients. They're members of the public who have volunteered to be simulated patients, and they are specially trained and assessed for that purpose. And using these simulated patients, we can, with very creative moulage, we can recreate a lot of trauma scenarios and general surgical scenarios. So these are not real wounds at all. These are recreated using silicone and theatrical paints and makeup. We also use a lot of technology in surgical training. So we have a smartphone app called M-Surgery, which was designed here in RCSI by our learning technology team. And M-Surgery has a wealth of training resources for surgical trainees, including videos of basic surgical techniques and core surgical procedures. The smartphone app also allows trainees to book themselves in for courses. It gives all the information about core surgical training. It gives them information about trainee support structures. And most importantly, it contains the surgical e-logbook, the electronic logbook, which again was specially designed in-house by RCSI. We're also using quite a lot of 3D virtual reality. So this is a 3D scenario that we designed in-house for the management of chest trauma. And when the trainee puts on their headpiece, they can work progressively through an entire chest trauma scenario, from first arrival of the patient in the emergency department to initial assessment and scans and investigations, right through to management and insertion of a chest drain for tension pneumothorax. So about 3.5 years ago, we looked at what we were doing in surgical training and decided that there was a good potential for bringing all this together into a 1-year concentrated program, a master's program in surgical science and practice. So the Masters in Surgical Science and Practice is a 1-year full-time course. We're just finishing our 3rd year of this course now. It's delivered entirely in our state-of-the-art simulation facilities in York Street in the centre of Dublin. And it is aimed specifically at recent medical graduates, people who have just graduated from medical school, and either have not yet undertaken their internship or have finished their internship but have not yet started surgical training. So it's designed for people who are just at the end of medical school or who have completed their internship. It's a fully accredited National University of Ireland Master's Programme. In our national framework, it's a level 9, attracting 90 ECTS credits. And briefly, to give you an overview, there are 5 main modules in the programme. The first is core knowledge and clinical judgment. Second is clinical skills. Third is technical skills. Fourth is non-technical skills. And the fifth is professional development. Now, if we look briefly at each of those 5 modules, core knowledge and clinical judgment is delivered through simulated multidisciplinary team meetings, which involve clinicians, oncologists, radiologists, and pathologists. So these are actual consultant oncologists, radiologists, and pathologists who take the trainees through real clinical scenarios with the relevant pathology and radiology, and they have discussions involving the trainees exactly as would happen in a real hospital. We also have case-based discussions, surgical forum, a basic sciences boot camp, weekly grand rounds where we link in with the actual grand rounds in Beaumont Hospital, which is the main teaching hospital for RCSI in Dublin, and weekly journal club. The clinical skills, we do simulated ward rounds using our simulated patients, simulated outpatient clinics, and simulated nights on call in the emergency department or in the intensive care unit. So all of this is done through simulation using our simulated patients. The major emphasis of the master's programme is on the acquisition of technical skills. So we have a very elaborate syllabus of technical skills, and trainees on this programme spend 10 hours per week in our simulation lab learning technical skills. Some of this training is done using simple bench models, but we also have access to high-end virtual reality simulators, such as this simulator for teaching lap chole, or this one for teaching endoscopy. And for more complex procedures, we use cadaveric material, either animal cadavers or human cadaveric material. The non-technical skills is our human factors programme, and this is also a very comprehensive syllabus of non-technical skills or human factors. And again, most of the teaching is done through simulation rather than through didactic teaching in the classroom. And finally, we have this very important module on professional development, where we give the trainees an introductory course in healthcare economics, healthcare management and lean, clinical governance and patient safety, information technology, surgical innovation, research methods, global surgery, and professionalism and ethical practice. So what this actually means is that participants in the Masters in Surgical Science and Practice effectively work in a virtual hospital for a year. So they don't work in a real hospital environment, they work in a virtual hospital and recreate all of the things that happen in real hospital life, except that it's all done through simulation, where there is time and opportunities for comprehensive, structured feedback, so that they have the maximum opportunity to learn. And the whole idea is that at the end of this programme, trainees should be able to enter surgical residency and hit the ground running, because they already have all of the basic skills which they acquired during their master's programme. So Tevin, I will come out here of my share screen and ask you to share your screen for the
No
video.
problem. Yep.
So, okay, so I have stopped share screening. If you can share now.
No problem at all. Can you see my screen?
Yes. The new RCSI Masters in Surgical Science and Practice presents a truly exciting new approach to early surgical education and training. As a participant on this program, you will cover the entire curriculum for core surgical training in just 1 year. The program takes place in these state-of-the-art simulation facilities at the new National Surgical and Clinical Skills Training Centre at RCSI. Collectively, these simulation facilities constitute a virtual hospital where we can recreate everything that happens in the hospital setting, but in a rich educational environment. You will acquire core knowledge using technology-enhanced learning techniques, including multidisciplinary team meetings, case-based discussions, grand rounds, journal clubs, and keynote lectures. You will also acquire clinical skills through immersive simulated ward rounds and intensive care rounds, simulated outpatient clinics, and simulated nights on call in the emergency department. There will be a major emphasis on skills acquisition, and you will spend time every day in a variety of simulation environments. You will become proficient in all of the basic surgical skills and also in the minor and intermediate surgical procedures which would normally be learned during the first 3 years of surgical residency. You will also acquire non-technical skills or human factor skills, such as communication, teamwork and leadership, crisis management, and patient safety. In addition to the knowledge, skills, and behaviors component, you will also undertake a module which addresses various elements of professional development, such as healthcare economics, healthcare management, surgical informatics, surgical information, global surgery, and various elements of professional behaviors. Finally, you will undertake a research methodology module, and you will prepare a 3,000-word dissertation suitable for publication in a scientific journal. Assessment of skills and documentation of competence will play an important part of this program, and your entire learning portfolio will be housed on the RCSI Learning Space platform. The overall aim of this program is to prepare you to enter surgical training at a more advanced level with documented knowledge, skills, and behaviors, which will allow you to accelerate your training and to enhance patient safety in the clinical workplace. This is the future of surgical training, and we invite you to be part of it. Thank you, Tevin. So I'm going to pause there now, except to say that the applications for the MSSP for the coming academic year, the closing date is coming up very soon. Kevin will talk to you more about that in a few moments, but the closing date is coming very soon. So if you are thinking about applying for the program for this year, I would encourage you to get your application in very quickly. The places are filling up very quickly, and we will be closing applications as soon as the course is full. So if you are thinking of doing it, don't delay. So I'm going to leave it there and hand back to Prem, and I'll be available for questions at the end.
Okay. So now we will go on to Dr. Celine Souk-Narine, who is a current student on the MSSP program. So there's Dr. Celine Souk-Narine. So if you want to give your student insight to everybody that's online today, that'd be fantastic. Thank you so much, Prof. Trainer, as well.
All right, hi everyone. So as Tevin introduced me, I'm Celine, and I'm a current MSSP student here at RCSI in Dublin. Just a bit of information about me before I get on to the actual program. So I graduated RCSI Dublin last year, and I ended up applying for internship in Ireland, which I got, but then decided that I would do the MSSP instead. So I'm going to go in a bit about why I made that decision, and a bit about, the MSSP on a whole and why I really enjoy it as a program. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the modules. So Prof. Trainer went into each of the 5 modules in detail, but just from a student's perspective then, module 1, which is the decision making module in the program. So this module is really useful as, just coming out of medical school, you have a lot of book knowledge, you have limited clinical experience, and sometimes it can be a bit frightening to move forward in the clinical aspect of things. And this module in particular really helps you build off of what you've learned in the past in your undergraduate career in a very practical sense, which has been really useful to me particularly. I find that it has significantly improved my confidence, and I feel a lot more comfortable moving forward now to going on to a job next year. In the module 2 section, which was the clinical skills section, this module is particularly useful, especially for people that are planning to apply to the MRCS. We practice a lot of the MRCS Part B skills in this module, so it's been very useful to get that clinical practice with consultants that can give you very, very fine-tuned feedback into what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and how better to improve in order to do well on the MRCS Part B. And now module 3, which was the technical skills module, which is full of simulation. Honestly, this module has completely just blown me out of the water. It's been an amazing module. The simulation that are capable of here at RCSI is absolutely incredible. Sometimes you think it might be a bit difficult to simulate these things, but then you go into class and you see that they've done it to a T, and it's lifelike and it's real. So it's been really useful to get that kind of lifelike practice. And we practice everything from the basics moving on to the more advanced surgical skills. So myself, after graduating from undergraduate medicine at RCSI, I felt like there was a bit of a gap in my knowledge. I didn't really know how to do the basic surgical techniques that like suturing or laparoscopic skills. And this program has really, really fostered my abilities in being able to do those things. So in the beginning, I remember thinking, how am I going to learn all of this? And this is also new to me. I need a lot of practice. But now simple things like suturing, laparoscopic skills, I feel far more confident in, just because of the repeated practice and the feedback that we've gotten from the professors here at the MSSP. And then we also move on to more advanced things. So we do ENT, cardiothoracics, orthopedics, general surgery, bowel anastomosis. So it really takes you from the very beginning and works you all the way up to develop perfect skills. And we practice a lot so that, our skills are perfect, and practicing them in a perfect way helps you to perform then when you move on to your career in the future. The non-technical skill module that Prof. Trainer touched on, this module is really also very, very helpful. I think sometimes in undergraduate career, you can kind of look at non-technical skills as a separate. So you get examined maybe once or twice during your undergrad training, but you're getting examined on non-technical skills. So you make sure to be even more empathetic. You make sure to, be nicer to the patients and whatnot. But this program really embeds non-technical skills in everything we do. So it's not alone or examined alone. And integrated into everything, whether that be information giving, information taking, ISBA, it's all really integrated. So you develop those skills and it becomes natural to you when you're doing, the simple things like history taking or examination, and moving on to the more complex things like talking to colleagues and explaining things to patients, breaking bad news and such. And then in module 5, so this module encompasses quite a lot, and it's really useful, as Prof. Trainer was saying, in the modern day medical field. You need to have more information than just the medical information. You have to have a bit about healthcare informatics, healthcare management, and specifically research, because as we all know, research is very important in progressing your career in the field of medicine. And when you start off in the MSSP, a really useful thing is that they start off from the basics and they work you up. So it's not that you're just jumping straight into doing a research project. They teach you everything first, and then you do a couple practice research projects where you get marks and you get feedback on it, which is really useful to help you then do your final project at the end of the year, which is what we are currently doing now, actually. So that's the MSSP on a whole in terms of the modules. But now I'm just going to talk a bit about the Irish experience on a whole. So I've been in Ireland for 7 years now, but when I first came, it was a scary thing. I had never really lived abroad or, had much experience in Ireland, but I can see that the Irish people are very welcoming, very friendly. And as Prof. Trainer was saying here at RCSI, we have a really good work-life balance. So you have time to work, but then you have time to relax. You have time to socialize with the new friends that you'll be making in the MSSP. And then RCSI itself, being a part of this university, allows you certain benefits. So myself, in the last year alone, I was able to get involved as a postgraduate ambassador for Ireland's Cultural Night, which was a really great experience for me. And we produced a really wonderful video showing, the Irish culture as well as the different cultures around the world that all mix into Ireland. We also have teaching opportunities to the undergraduate students. So I was able to help teach some of the undergraduate students here at RCSI and was able to receive a certificate for that. And then also at RCSI, they run the RCSI Leadership Development Program, which is a program that's run over 6 weeks. Majority of it is online, but it is something that you can do additional to the MSSP that gives you, more of an input from the general RCSI community, because that's not only postgrads, that's undergrads, that's pharmacy, that's physiotherapy. So this program not only allows you to be a part of the MSSP, it allows you to be a part of the RCSI family, which is really, really useful and really great. It's been an amazing experience for me, at least. And then one thing that I really would like to touch on about this program is the MSSP team on a whole. Prof. Trainer, Dr. Morris, Ms. Henskin, everyone that runs the modules, all of the consultants, all of the program leads, everyone. The feeling of wanting you to move forward in life and do better is so strong within the MSSP. So I've never been a part of a program where, you can talk to consultants one-on-one and ask them for advice and figure out how best to move forward. Consultants know you by name, and it's way easier to approach them then. Everyone in the MSSP is so friendly and so, accommodating and open to feedback that it's been a truly amazing experience. They're very supportive. This past year has been such a supportive environment for me that I've been able to do board exams. I've done USMLE 1 and 2, and then many of the students have done MRCS Part A as well as Part B. So it really does help you in that sense, having such a supportive and accommodating environment to be a part of. And then the last thing that I'll just touch on quickly about the MSSP is the fact that you get such intense one-to-one teaching. So sometimes in undergraduate medicine or even in clinical practice, you learn to do things and you do it the way you do it, and you don't get much feedback until the exam. And by then it's pretty much too late. This program itself, it looks at everything. You get one-to-one feedback from consultants that help you, better fine-tune your skills, so that when you go to the exams or when you go into clinical practice, it's really, you perform far better than anyone else. I've even talked to a couple interns from my graduating year that have ended up in Ireland or the UK, and they said that going into a job straight after medical school can feel like you're just jumping into the deep end. And this program has really, really helped me feel far more comfortable with going into a job in the future. And quite honestly, I think about it, like I can't imagine someone not doing this program before going into a job, because it has helped me so much in far more ways than I can even describe in 10 minutes. But that's a bit of the insight from a student's perspective, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, brilliant. So I think next we're going to go on to the live Q&A session. Obviously, we have a lot of pre-submitted questions and questions in the chat to answer. So I'll give you to Professor Raghu, who will lead out on the live Q&A session.
Yeah, thanks very much, Devin. And it's always wonderful to hear you talk, Prof. Trainer, and see the beautiful the simulation lab. And it's always fascinating to see that. And Celine, also, I think, the students are our best ambassadors. And I think, you've described your experience really well. I'm sure there's a couple of questions popping up here. We've had a bunch of questions that have come in before the session, and perhaps I could address it to Prof. Trainer and yourself, Celine. So the first one is, does this course have any benefit for the PLAB qualification? That's a question that keeps coming up every now and again. I understand that I suppose what the person's trying to ask is, will this help me pass the PLAB exam? But I guess the PLAB exam itself is changing. Prof. Trainer, any news at all about that?
Yeah, so I mean, this course is primarily a surgical course. So it's really all about surgery. The PLAB, as I understand it, is a more general exam to get registration with the GMC in the UK. And here in Ireland, we have a similar one called the PRES exam, which is to get registered with the Irish Medical Council. But these exams are sort of general medical knowledge exams, whereas our course is specifically surgery. So without a doubt, this would help you for any surgical elements on that exam. But, you know, to be honest with you, we don't really do much on pediatrics or obstetrics or anesthesia. We don't cover that in this course.
Perfect. I can see that there's a hand just went up very briefly. Was that an accident? I don't see the hand up anymore. Okay, if you have any questions, please do put your hands up. You know, no problem at all. Now, another question is, do all students in this program graduate successfully? In other words, have any students failed to finish this course? Prof?
Okay, so far, touch wood, nobody has failed to graduate. So we've had 2 graduation classes, and our 3rd one is just about to finish in 3 weeks time. So Selena is in our 3rd class, so she'll be graduating. So far we haven't had anyone who's failed, and I hope that's the way it continues.
Perfect. I think with what Celine has described, with such good mentorship, I think it's difficult to fail this course. Now, there's a couple of other things, questions that have come up. What do you do after this course? What percentage of them successfully match to surgical residencies? I mean, I suppose that really depends on the USMLE. The other question is, can I continue a PhD after this program? How about that? Any scope of pursuing another degree after this in RCSI?
Well, we do have other academic programs, but they're not a progression from this course. So this course is very definitely a 1-year full-time course, and you know, you start the course and you finish it. There's no progression to a PhD. PhD would normally be done on research. So we have lots and lots of PhD students in RCSI, but not directly linked to this course. It will be completely separate. But you know, the short answer to the question is there's lots of PhD opportunities in RCSI for people who want to do research, but it's different. It's quite separate from this course.
Right. Perfect. And what about the progression to surgical residencies? I suppose that's linked to that's linked to the USMLE. But I'm sure this course helps people who are starting the residencies. Is that right?
Absolutely. So many of the people who come to do this course return to their own country afterwards. Not all. Some stay here in Ireland, but most return to their own country. So we don't have like 100% reliable figures for who's got into residencies, because people do return to their own country, and naturally you often tend to lose contact with them as time goes by. But the vast majority of our graduates have been successful in getting into residency programs in their own country or in this part of the world.
Perfect. Yeah, I think there's a hand that's gone up. Yes. Do you want to ask any questions there? It's from Kenyon Yuzi. Do you want to ask anything at all, please? Or was that an accident?
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Steve Lucas. I'm currently in Uganda. I'm actually nice, but I've worked in theater for like 11 years. So I got interested after I was passing on Nick. My friend told me about the university. Hello?
Sorry, yeah, I have to say I can't hear you. I don't know about the others, but I can't hear you very well. I think there's a lot of background noise. Maybe you might want to type your question out in the chat box. That might be
Yeah,
useful.
maybe for all questions with people with their hands up, just put them in the chat and we'll be able to kind of read
Yeah.
them out as they come in, and that'll probably be a better process as well with Dr. Banti as well. If you want to put any questions in the chat, that'll probably be better off so we can read it from there. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Well, moving on, there's another question about the students joining the program directly out of medical school. Do they need to do any, do they have to have any prior experience in surgery before joining this course? Or can they join directly after medical school?
You can join directly after medical school, and maybe Celine might want to say a little more about that because she's a good example of somebody who joined directly after medical school. So the only requirement is the English language test. It is a requirement that that people who graduate from a medical school which was not through English has to do an English language test. But it's a relatively simple test to do. It's the IELTS or IELTS, which is an international English language test.
Right.
Celine,
Okay.
you might talk about your experience of joining directly from medical school. As I think Celine mentioned, that she had a choice. She had an offer of an intern post, and she actually turned down that offer in order to take this course instead, in order to better prepare herself for the intern post.
Yeah, so exactly as Prof. Turner said there, I graduated from medical school last year and then came directly into this course then. And quite honestly, I find the one thing that has been, it was difficult in the beginning, but now it's fine, was the technical skills. So some students that have come from, hospital posts or done the intern year or done an SHO year here and there, were at the beginning better than I was because I just didn't have any practice with it and I didn't know how to do it. But the MSSP has really helped me foster my surgical skills. And now that I feel that we are all now at the same level, and that kind of comes into play as well with different modules as well. So coming directly out of undergrad year, I think that the knowledge, the sort of book knowledge, I'd like to call it, I had that as I just finished final med, where some people might have had to brush up on a couple of things. So, there's a give and take with everything, but the MSSP really does a great job at making sure that at the end of it, we're all at the same level and we're all competent.
Perfect. Yeah, that's right. So again, a few questions pop up about research experience. Do students have to have any research experience before they join this course? And would they be given any support for research during this course?
No, absolutely. There's no requirement to have any research experience. We do have a research methodology module as part of the course. So you would learn all of the basic skills for research, how to conduct research, basic statistics, basic concepts of research methodology. That's all covered in the research methods module. And then in addition to that, there is a requirement to submit a dissertation, a research dissertation at the end of the program. So it's part of the program that you submit a research dissertation. But it's not laboratory research. You don't have to conduct original research. It's more of a dissertation based usually on a literature review. Again,
Right.
Celine might
right.
comment on that.
Sorry, Celine, yeah.
Yeah, so my experience with the research report, as I said before, coming into the MSSP, as Prof. Trainer also said, they carried us through research modules, so we were able to learn the basics before we started to apply that to doing actual research. But now we've been doing the research, and actually today is our presentation of that research. And it's been a pretty great experience in my point of view, from my point of view. The MSSP links you in with a PI that will help you conduct that research. So that's very useful, as sometimes, coming in, you might be a little confused about who to contact or where to move forward, but the MSSP actually sorts that all out for you. So you have a point of contact that will help you with your research. So that's all been really very useful. And in terms of previous research experience, there's some students that have not had any research experience and have now, just presented their research. So it shows you that they take you from the very basics and carry all the way up. And then the other students that have had some research experience, and they have also not, it doesn't keep them in that one bracket of basics, that they've been able to advance their research experience then, which has also been very useful. So overall, the research experience has been a positive one.
Great. Okay, and I think how are we doing for time, Tevin? Do we have time for more questions? Otherwise, we can reply individually too.
Maybe we can take one or two from the chat, because obviously they were the pre-submit. So maybe if we can take maybe the last two. So there's one there from Zerkri. I'm currently a medical officer in Malaysia, interested in making pathway to become a surgeon. I've taken the MRCS Part 1 to proceed with clinical practice to become a surgeon. What is the advantage of taking this course to become a surgeon? I presume as well you need to take the MRCS Part B as well. So maybe Prof. Trainer, like in terms of the MRCS and becoming a member of the Royal College of Surgeons, how beneficial is this course to kind of helping you in that journey?
Well, yeah, two things, I suppose. Firstly, the course will definitely help you to pass the MRCS Part B, because the content of this course, the syllabus of this course, is based almost 100% on the syllabus for the MRCS examination. So if you have done this course, you would certainly be in a strong position to pass the MRCS. It's almost like a one-year prep course for the MRCS exam. The second thing is what will be the benefit for you in terms of your surgical training. It's really about giving you the skills, both the clinical skills and the technical skills required to start at a higher place in your surgical training, really. As you know, if you're a resident, if you're working in a hospital with a consultant trainer, and they see that you can do all the basic skills like knot tying and suturing and wound closure and basic surgical procedures, if they see that you can do that, they will be much more likely to give you cases to do. And so you will progress much more quickly because the trainer will have confidence in you because you have already acquired the skills. It's not like you're starting off on the first week and you don't even know how to tie knots or you don't know how to close a wound. That's not a great way to start. If you start your surgical training and on the first week, the consultant trainer sees that you already have all these skills, then they're far more likely to give you cases to do on your own. I'm sure you'd agree with that, Raghu.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think those days we just started off in the operating room, and it was frightening how things have changed. Things have changed so much now, and this is a fantastic opportunity. I really, I think perhaps this will be mandated, in the future. You'll have to do a course like this before you even step into residency. So yeah, I think. And moving on, I think there's one more. I think there's another couple of questions in terms of fees. Can you pay in installments? And also, how many applications have been received this year, and what probability to get placed in the program? Tevin, perhaps you might be able to address that.
In terms of any questions used to final timelines and fees, we suggest email at mssp@rcsi.ie. So our team here will be able to deal with them questions, and also any questions that are not answered in this event will be followed up in a post email that we will touch base on before the end of the week. And just in terms of finally, in terms of the timelines, obviously now we're at a period now where applications are closing in 2 weeks on the 1st of June on Wednesday 2022, close of business. business. So we advise anybody thinking about applying to get their application as soon as possible. Look, even though it's a competitive process, we still are reviewing applications to bring into interviews. So if you have an application and you're thinking about applying, and as Prof Trainer and as Dr. Celine and Sukhnarine kind of illustrate, that this is opportunity of a lifetime in terms of year and what you'd be able to learn and do and what you'd be able to progress into as well. So we suggest anybody thinking about applying, don't be afraid that because we're doing final round interviews, there are still places available. So we need to see you for you to have an opportunity. So that's what we'd be recommending. So if you have any questions, email us at mssp@rcsi.ie and we'll be sure to get back to you with any information you want. But just to make sure that you have the best opportunity, get your application soon enough, because once June 1st hits and we get applications after that, then the chances are very, very slim to zero. So that's what I'd say. And obviously, as I'll say this again, we'll answer all other questions that are being sent through to a post email. So Prof Raghu, I think we're going to close now.
Sure. I think there's one more. Do we have time for one more, Tim? Because there's a hand up there, Dr. Banti. Maybe we can take a quick question if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. All.
Yeah, Dr. Banti. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, basically, I've done my BA MS, that's Bachelor of Ayurvedic Medicine and Surgery, and I've done my General Surgery Masters. I wanted to know, will this course help me in my future?
Right. I think the first question here is whether you are eligible to do this course. I think that's right. And I think if your medical school is registered in the World Directory, I think it shouldn't be a problem. Perhaps Prof. Trainer might be able to take this.
Yeah, I mean, if you graduated from a medical school that's recognized by the World Health Organization, then you're eligible to apply. So the only two absolute requirements are a medical degree, MB, BCH, or BS, from a recognized medical school, and secondly is passing the English language test.
Okay, sir.
Perfect.
I'll just go through from WHO.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Banti.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So I think with that, we'll bring the session to a close, and it's been fantastic. It's always good to hear you talk, Prof. Trainer, and how, and it's really great to see, Dublin. It's been a while since I've been there, so I think I'm due for a trip. It'll be fantastic to see, and I think, I would encourage everybody. I mean, I trained there for such a long time. I trained under Prof. Trainer. I don't think I've done too badly, Prof. Trainer, maybe.
You've done very well. You're my star pupil, Raghu.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I would definitely encourage people to do this course and go there and get a sample of a fantastic Irish life, very friendly people. And I think you will not regret it. That's really the bottom line. So thank you very much, Celine. It's fantastic to hear you and your experience there. We had Primpreet Mann the last time, and he was telling us about how he was enjoying the course. So I think you guys are really enjoying yourselves, getting a lot of training experience. Is something you will not probably forget for the rest of your lives. Okay, so I think with that we'll bring the session to a close. Thank you everybody for attending and for your time. And if you've got any questions at all, please write directly to the program office or to Tevin. I'm sure you have his email. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Tevin?
No, just thank you to all. Thank you to Prof. Trainer. Thank you to Dr. Celine Sukhnarine. Thank you to Prof. Premnath, and thank you to yourself, Prof. Raghu, and everyone that's attended. As I said, we're very passionate about this program, and we do see as the future of surgical education using simulation. So, this is why we're expanding borders. This is why we always have a diverse mix every single year we do this program. We truly see this as a program for all, and we want to expand this opportunity to all. So, if you have any queries, as Prof. Raghu said, email mssp@rcsi.ie. and then we'll be able to get back to you. As I said, 1st of June, that's when applications close. So we truly say, if you are thinking about applying, get your application in as soon as possible. And I think that's it.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Thanks for attending. Look forward to seeing you soon.
No problem. Thanks all. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.